What's going on, everybody? And what's going on, folks? My name is David, and I'm your host of this legendary podcast, the D-constructing Topic podcast, where we grab a topic and we just deconstruct. We break it down, or at least for us to have an understanding of what's going on. And once again, my name is Let's go, David, the Deconstruct the Topic podcast host, and we got a good one off the bat. Not normally. This is my first podcast of 2026, and I will have loved to do a podcast, and I definitely will. And I promise you, for those folks out there listening to me and subscribe and all that good stuff, if you're new here, welcome. If you're not, you already know, much love. And much love to everyone out there, because I would love to kind of start the new year with a little bit of kind of inspirational podcast on how we're going to set the 2026 on fire, like how we're going to make 2026 legendary. But today we got to talk about, what's going on with Venezuela and what's going on with Trump, niggas, Maduro, all this good stuff, whatever is going on. And sometimes I say to myself, man, I love politics. And if you're listening to this, it's going to be a political episode, just my opinion and my observation on what I think about the situation or what I've seen about the situation. And once you have to kind of think like, hey, here we go again. You know what I mean? If you are someone of living in this world for quite a while, more than 4 decades, without giving my age away there, you've seen this script before, and you've seen this time and time on behalf of the United States. But what's interesting is that I have the receipts, and I spoke to more than a handful of people about 2-3 weeks ago. And in the United States, we had a lotto, the Mega Millions, $1.7 billion. I don't play the lotto, but sometimes when you have a pool of friends that want to throw a dollar to play what they call a pool, to buy lotto tickets and split the prices, so whatever, hey, I'm down. So the lotto Mega Millions was $1.7 billion. And what I said a couple of weeks ago, and I've been saying it for a while, whoever wins the lotto, when whoever wins the prize, I'll guarantee that within 2 weeks, maybe one, United States will strike on Venezuela. And I got receipts. Hey, listen, I got people to reach out to me and say like, oh man, you said it. You predicted that was going to happen. I said, this is not a prediction. That's Paul Heyman was saying. Sometimes in life, this is not a prediction. And then I not predicted that. It's more or less of a spoiler. Because I've observed from years of observing, thinking independent, thinking on my own. That's why I suggest people, think on your own. Think on your own. Unplug yourself from these mainstream news and unplug yourself from the establishment of the two political party system, because that's what they do. And this is what's happened in the United States just about every decade that I've been living in this country. And hit the like button, because after this, you're going to be like, wow, so he predicted, just like last year. I remember early in the year, I predicted that Joe Biden was going to drop out of the race. It's that you have to understand how this establishment works. It's like a script. And I look at politics just like in the eye of wrestling. I love me some wrestling. I love me some WWE, back then WWF. It's a script. And it seems like it's just different people that is put, but it's the same storyline. And in the case of the United States with Donald Trump, bombing, Venezuela, taking Maduro, now he's being charged, indictment here, there, whatever is going to happen here. I don't know. He's being charged for drug trafficking and fentanyl and all this. And some people are like, well, here's my thing. I don't like it, obviously. And I see that a lot of people have come out and it works with different why this happened. Obviously, a lot of people would say, well, this is not because of the drug trafficking. It's more of oil. Some people would say maybe it's not the oil. It's because of the relationship that Venezuela has with China and Russia. You already know that the United States is not too fond of those two countries. Some say that it's because, Maduro was not a fan of Israel. We could go on and on and on and so on. It could have been that, hey, Maduro just got caught in, on purpose. And, hey, he probably knew that his time was going to come. He's like, hey, just get me. Some people have mentioned that it's kind of similar to what happened with Manuel, with Noriega in Panama, 1989. I remember that. And then there's some people, oh, look, Trump did this, and he didn't have the permission of Congress. And I say, well, I mean, the president has that type of power. But for those people who are pointing the finger, oh, look how evil Trump is. Hey, listen, if I look at every president, doesn't matter what the difference is, it's just the same script. Whether it's George W., whether it's Bill Clinton on the Bill Clinton, the situation in Haiti happened, and some other things there. George W., you already know that's where to start with George W. Bush, right? Barack Obama, the situation with Libya and Gaddafi and a couple of others. Donald Trump, look, there you go. Even before coming to this country, the first president that was, I believe it was Reagan's last year or George H. Bush, once again, situation that happens in Panama. And those situations are never popular because a lot of Americans, no matter what the political aisle is, a lot of Americans, especially those middle-class, hardworking Americans, hey, listen, my tax dollars, my tax dollars. But here's the issue. When Americans tend to, how can I say, not be too fond of what's going on, sadly, when it comes to voting, guess you're going to vote for the same establishment. Republicans and the Democratic Party here in the United States. Some people, it's funny because of what Donald Trump did, that he did that thing in Venezuela. Now, if you are pro-Ukrainian, I remember this situation where people who were not too fond of, we got to stop Vladimir, we got to send as much money as Ukraine, because no country should invade country. Now you upset at this situation with Donald Trump, and I'm like, okay, you can't pick sides. You can't be, pro-Ukraine and be anti-Trump for the sake of invading Venezuela. It just doesn't add up there. You see how this kind of reminds me. So I'm a wrestling fan, and if you know, and I'll be doing a podcast, John Cena, former wrestler. One of the legendary icons, maybe the GOAT, the greatest wrestler of all time. It was his last little tour, and one of the storylines, he became a heel. He became a bad guy. You know what I mean? Kind of reminds me of what happens in this country, that, one person, it could be, let's say, anti-Democrat, and the Democrats do something. Let's say they went after Gaddafi. You get mad. Oh, why we went after Gaddafi and we wasted taxpayers' dollars. But then you could be okay when Republicans, let's say Donald Trump, went after Maduro. For whatever it is, whatever behind thing that we don't know, we never going to know, maybe perhaps. It's never a good thing because this is what the United States does. And you see how it flip-flops. So John Cena, when used to wrestle, the fans, 1 minute would say, let's go Cena, Cena sucks. Let's go Cena, Cena sucks. When John Cena, and this was when he was a good guy, babyface. And when he became a heel, the bad guy, the roles reversed. You see what I'm saying? So the fans that cheered now started to jeer him and boo him. The fans that boo him started to cheer him. And John Cena said, you see, this is the problem with you. You guys don't know what you want. And this kind of, in a sense, the way I see the American voters. The American voter, if you grab at the average American voter, they're going to be running always on the same establishment. And as long as we got the same establishment, sadly, we're always going to have these Maduros, Noriega, Gaddafi, Hussein, Osama, the list and going on. We tried with Castro and so on and so forth. If the United States makes a move on Cuba, I'm like, oh, my goodness. Sadly, this is what Russia's probably doing on the other side of things with the help of China. Now, China doesn't get involved much like that, but if China decides to go after Taiwan, guess what? See how these, I tend to think that these countries, Russia, China, and United States, right? Throwing maybe, Israel, Saudi, but these are the three kind of top-tier countries in terms of military. I'm just going to simply say it, military. These are the three strongest military countries there is. Got a little bit of sprinkles of other countries, but these are the three. And the other day, I'm over here, I order a product online because, that's the other thing too. They turn us into consumers. That's what happened with the situation with the lotto. They turned us into so much consumer that we were thinking, and maybe 60% of the American population that played the lotto were thinking about just winning the lotto instead of what's going on. But this is what happened, right? And then listen, they turned it into a consumer as well. So the other day, I'm doing a little shopping online. Needed a little closet, little nice metal closet, portable. And I got the box. The box says made in China, right? Hear me out. So I order this product in an American company website, and this product is made from China, and it was brought to you by a company, American company. So in other words, sometimes I feel like these three countries and the oligarchs of these three countries, they sit every day, maybe every year, and they just do a script on how to manipulate the world. If you go to China, it's a pro-China, anti-American. If you go to Russia, the same thing. And if you come here, if you're United States, anti-China, anti-Russia, pro-United States. But then in this country, we tend to point the finger at the other. If you voted for Hillary, no different than you voted for Trump. No different than you voted for Barack Obama. The two Bushes, the Clintons. It's all, they do the same thing, and I feel like they do the same thing globally with these three countries, because I'm like, there's no way that China is going to do something silly that's going to jeopardize their companies. And there's no way that the United States would do something drastically, let's say get in war with China or Russia, and hurt a lot of American companies that depend on China. Yes, is that what I'm saying? Apple, right? I'm recording my podcast on Podbean using my Apple phone. My understanding is that, hey, China was the place to be to make these iPhones. Guess who's reaping the benefits? You see what I'm talking about? See how this works? And then Trump goes and China. Then that's the Republican Party. The Democratic, Russia. And the people, they eat it up. The American people eat it up. And I'm not trying to say, hey, those countries got their own little problems. What happened in Russia, Ukraine, again, not a fan of it. Because when there's global conflicts, everything goes up because there are certain things in certain countries. Whether it's grain, wheat, the stuff to make peppermint, everything goes up. Everything that has peppermint went up like 50% from the last 3 or 4 years, ever since the situation in Ukraine. Maybe there's some grains there that they use to make, I don't know. But you see where we at with that situation, what happens here in Venezuela? It's the same thing. We heard this story before. And for people to be like, Trump, there's some people that got legit gripe. But when they call out Trump, they call the establishment, both the Republican and Democratic parties. There's no way when people say be like, well, this would have happened if Harris, man. Have you not seen, even in New York City, where Mandani, our mayor, our new elected mayor, went to see Trump? You know what he said after the interview? And it's funny because people be like, oh, look, Mandani owned Trump and all this. But guess what Mandani said? He said Maduro's a dictator. See, he already was selling the war. You see how this works? And I'm not going to say I see that it works. Sadly, people will eat this and people will go and vote Republican, Democrat. I mean, just, it's a cycle. I want people to wake up and realize, like, listen, what's happening, whether the drug traffic, fentanyl. Now, look, we had a lot of people a couple of years ago on the Biden, to give you an example, especially the MAGA crowd. Republican crowd, upset at the migrants, a lot of Venezuela, they coming over here, whatever it is, what's going on. Then the Trump situation, now those migrants are going to now become different. Their status is going to change based on what Kristi Noem said. So that means that they're good. Now, if you're a MAGA, what are you going to say now? Deport them? Well, your president under this administration decided to do that one thing, and now look, you got fellow Venezuelan citizens who will eventually be protected by whatever immigration law there is now because of what's happening in Venezuela. I'm telling you. So if you're a MAGA person, what are you going to do? You can't say anything now. See how they flip-flop and they make people like John Cena said. That's why sometimes this country is the way it is. They make you flip-flop, and they'll put the same script under the Democrat Party, and Republican voters will be mad. And they'll use the same script later under a Republican administration, and Democrats be upset, and it will be the same script, just different person. And you see how people tend to, every 4 years or whatever you vote, and you see how they change the script. They make you, they don't basically change the script, but they make you flip-flop so that you could go and vote for the same establishment. At the end of the day, what really hits America? Now, with the lotto situation, if the 1.7 billion, if you're talking about 50% taxes or whatever, even if it's $300 million taxes, my understanding, that's how much the operations that cost in those couple hours, about $300 million. I'm just saying, put it together. Put it together. Now, you might say, oh, but, the budget, the military got enough. They don't need 300 mil from the lottery. You got to keep in mind, it's a budget. The United States government has a fiscal year. That means that everything is already, just about everything is counted. So how can we get $300 million without nobody counting? The lotto. And for those people that are not living in the United States, and those who are living in the United States, when you win the lotto, you have to pay taxes. Federal taxes, all that good stuff. So that means $1.7 billion better be billions. Even worst case scenario, taxes would have been $300 million. And there you go. That's operation, whatever the hell happened. Somebody said it's operation, United States do whatever it is that they do. No one could say anything. Not the people in this country, they're going to do a rally about Venezuela. That's another interesting aspect of things. Land country is interesting. And I know a lot of people from land countries that are, not a fan of Trump, right? Because what's happening now is affecting their families, whatever. But yeah, they find themselves like, well, Maduro, he didn't treat his people. And that's the reason I came to this country, because in my government, you see what I'm saying? And what I'm saying is that even those who are not too fond of MAGA might say, hey, listen, well, that's the reason why a lot of Venezuela, those people that were pro-border, I'll give an example, a lot of Venezuelan, and guess what they would say? Well, the reason they left Venezuela because of their situation. Now, they mad at Trump, but you would think, oh, man, Trump is taking over a so-called dictator that people were fleeing from all these last couple of years under Biden. I'm telling you, it's like, please, America, please, everybody, wherever country you're in, if you're not too fond of the government, but you want to make changes, you think on your own. And think of things like that. What happens in your country? And what's happening here in the United States, the same thing. As long as we got establishments, sadly, we always going to get these situations time after time after time. Well, once again, this is D-constructing Topic Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this one. This is the first episode of the year, so we making it happen. Lots of good things coming on. A lot of great things we're going to be doing. A lot of, not even great, I'll take it back, a lot of legendary. And excuse me if I did a couple of hiccups in today's episode. I was recording this and I was eating a nice little breakfast. So sometimes I'm not going to say it sometimes. I don't edit these things because I like to talk on the fly. I like to kind of talk with that straight from the heart. You already know, the corazón, boom, let's make it happen. But anyways, my peoples, my legendary peoples, let's make 2026 very legendary. Let's make it happen. I'm out of here. Don't forget to share, sub, hit the like, comment, talk to me. That like would always be something, and that share would always mean something. Let's make it happen. I'm out. Peace. I'm out.